Welcome to the Real Estate Secrets Podcast for healthcare professionals, hosted by Austin Hare and Nathan Palmer, who together have over 2 decades of real estate knowledge and investing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. If you have not already liked and subscribed to the podcast, we ask that you do that now. It really helps us beat the algorithm. And for today, we have an awesome guest on the show. She is the founder and CEO of the Dental A Team. It's Kiera Dent. So, Kiera, pleasure to have you on the show today. How's it going?
Hey, Austin. Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. So, always appreciative of technology in this time. I know that you guys are over there in Reno, and we're in Orlando.
Yes.
And us complaining about the cold of like 50 degrees in the wintertime is a lot different than I'm sure most of the country and how they complain about the cold at this time of year.
The fact that you're in Orlando and it's already that cold is impressive. I mean, I don't think I've ever been to Orlando and it's that cold. That's cold. I mean, Reno's 50 degrees and I'm cold and we don't have humidity. So I think you should definitely be able to complain about that. I mean, you're supposed to be beach surf weather for all your life, and that's not surfing weather at all.
I know. It's 50 degrees. And so for everybody listening, they think that, oh my gosh, you're being such a baby. And it's true. I'll admit it. We're being a little bit of a baby. But what people forget about is the humidity, because the humidity just makes it feel exponentially colder than it actually is.
Right. Yeah, totally. No, there's a reason I live with dry heat. I mean, I lived in Phoenix for a while, and I will say I've become a baby since then. Like, I don't swim in cold water. I mean, California beaches, they're beautiful, but I would definitely take East Coast beaches. They're way warmer. West Coast beaches are so cold. So I think you're totally justified in that feeling.
Well, I appreciate that. Okay, so how did you get started in the dental industry? Like, go through your thought process and what made you decide to take that route?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me on the show today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to wear scrubs. Reality, like bottom line truth, I wanted to wear scrubs. And in high school, I could either wear scrubs and be a nurse or be a dental assistant. And I prefer the term efficient, not lazy. And I was like, learn the whole body, learn the mouth. Let's definitely go the dental route. And so that's actually how I got into dentistry. So in high school, I became a dental assistant in California. Worked as a dental assistant for quite a few years. Then I became a treatment coordinator, a scheduler, a biller, office manager. And then in 2012, I actually got a job working at Midwestern University's College of Dental Medicine in Glendale, Arizona. So then I started working in dental college, and then, my husband graduated from pharmacy school in 2015. And then I went and helped a student straight out of school, and I became a practice owner with her, and we kind of just went from there. So I went from dental assistant to practice owner. In a very
Not quite the normal route.
Not quite the normal route at all. But
was it hard getting respect as a practice owner without being like a dentist? Like, you know what I mean?
For sure. And I don't think a lot of dentists like non-dentist owners. But honestly, for me, it's street cred. I feel like if I'm going to coach dentists and work with dentists and talk to team members, that's credibility. I understand what it's like to have overhead sitting on you. I understand what it's like not to be able to pay payroll. I understand what that's like to have the stresses of how do you pick a practice and grow it. And so honestly, for me, it was a wild journey. But I feel like it gave me a lot of street credibility and a lot of empathy and love for all the doctors that we work with because of that. And I still own practices. It's not my retirement plan by any stretch. I just do it solely to understand the world that they live in a lot better.
That's great. And so let's back up a little bit. I find that a lot of people who end up being business owners have like an entrepreneurial history. So, before you went to school and when you were thinking about what you wanted to do, did you ever do anything like, in middle school or high school or even earlier? Like, what's kind of like the earliest entrepreneurial memory that you have?
So I definitely did. My brother was a pretty big entrepreneurial spirit. He sold pencils. He was the one who kind of started inspiring me. So he bought pencils from those pencil machines in elementary school for 25 cents. And he'd just buy a ton of them until he got the really good ones that all the students wanted. And then he'd upsell those for like 50 cents. So you could either spend 25 cents and have a gamble or spend 50 cents with him. And so as kids, we actually lived on the golf course. My parents lived I think we were on hole 3 growing up. And so I definitely had a side business of selling golf balls to the golfers because there was a pond right by our house too. They lose their balls. I have a whole basket, sat there, sold them, made my pocket change. I also had a friend, her and I, it was like the ponds would freeze over in the wintertime. And we were super light girls. And this is pure stupidity. I don't know what I was thinking, but we decided we were going to make some money to go buy candy at the gas station. So we would walk out on this thin ice and get the golf balls for the golfers. Only my leg fell into the pond,
Wow.
thankfully. But I remember that was one of my like craziest little business deals of wanting to just like get money to go to the gas station and buy candy or
That's hilarious. And how old were you at the time?
gosh, I started working on my family's lawn business when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
And I was little. I was in second grade, and our golf ball business definitely was up and running first.
Well, that's a good business
like
because it's all margin. You get to find the golf balls for free. And
totally.
We actually did. I did the exact same thing in fourth grade. Me and my buddy would go through the woods. We'd get the golf balls. There's a golf course a couple houses down. And yeah, I mean, it was like, it felt like you were printing money at the time, really.
Totally. I know. You just go pick these things up for free. We had the pond. So we had one of those golf ball scooper uppers to get out of the ponds. We just go like look for them every night. It was fantastic. So yeah.
You guys were a lot more efficient than we were.
We didn't have to go hunt and gather as hard, but yeah, no. And then in pharmacy school, my husband was there. I wanted to pay down our loans. So I actually started, I rented my house out on Airbnb for the Super Bowl. I created a window washing business with my friend, and we like literally had our pitch down of like, our husbands are in medical school. We're just trying to make money. I did a natural dog food business with this girl, which was disgusting. That was one of the worst jobs I ever picked up. But yeah, it's always been that very scrappy. There's a way, let's figure it out. There's got to be a solution, and we're going to hustle and grind and figure it out.
Okay. So you guys must have got married pretty young then if he was in medical school.
So I actually got married late by Mormon standards. You know, I was one of those girls. I make the joke that people are like, you're in dentistry and your last name's Dent. And I'm like, yeah, it took me 3 fiancés to get that last name. Just needs better SEO. But no, I actually got married when I was 25. So both of us were 25, and then he went and obviously later he did a 2-year mission. So he was older in his class as well. But yeah, we got married in October, and then we were in pharmacy school in May.
Wow. Okay. Moving fast.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the process like of going from hygienist to owner? Like, how did that happen?
So, and I'm going to clear that. I was never a hygienist, but I was a dental assistant. And so assistant, no, you're totally fine. I don't want people thinking that I scrape teeth. Like that's not my jam. But dental assistant to owner, I always had a dream that I would be a practice owner some way. I didn't know how. It's not conventional whatsoever. But I knew that there'd be some way. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I don't know if I have to buy one. And so I think I don't know, I've just found this in life, when you have a target and a dream, and it's almost like you obsess about it. You don't know how, you're not dead set on how it's going to come. That's when life starts to present itself to you. And so when the opportunity came for me to be a practice owner with this student, I'd made a lot of connections. And that was one of those things. As a dental assistant, I had an opportunity to either stay a dental assistant or go work at the dental college. And I remember the day I took the job at the dental college, I thought, I'm probably not going to be a dental assistant again. And there was like a piece of me that died off. And I remember being very sad about it. That was a hard thing for me to go through. But I think I realized, like, where do I ultimately want to go, and how am I going to get there? Am I willing to take those big leaps when they appear? I believe that the doors of opportunity show up. It's kind of like a wheel, and that door is right there, and it's going to come, and I can either walk through that door when it shows up, or I've got to wait and hope it comes back to me at some time. And so taking the job at Midwestern, I feel, was one of the biggest things that got me there. They say you and I are Tony Robbins fans.
Yeah.
And Tony always says proximity is power. And so getting surrounded by a bunch of doctors and dental students and opportunities I knew would be there, my impact could be far greater. So that's how I was able to do it. And then met a student. She was fantastic and said, hey, I can't pay you what I know it costs to hire you, so I'm going to swap equity with you. Is that something you're interested in? And I was like, that's a definite yes. Let's do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll be playing house, but let's figure it out.
Okay, cool. So she essentially offered you this opportunity. You got equity, which helped you accomplish your dream of being an owner. Mm-hmm. And so then what did that process look like? You know, what were they like when they started, and, you know, how did it grow from there?
Yeah. So we bought a practice at $500,000 and grew it to $2.4 million in 9 months, and bought our second location 9 months out of school, which I think is kind of like one of those fun success stories. Like, how did you guys do it? And I'm like, we downright played house. We didn't know what we were doing. I had like tax auditors come in. I remember we almost got sued. We had the board. Like there was all this crazy stuff. So I
In
felt like
9
I
months,
had
that's a
most
whirlwind.
people's like their whole career in dentistry, like most of their experience they have, like that was packed in 9 months. We also moved our location. So
Wow.
our building was being torn down. So 2 months after we bought it, we had to move all of our patient base. We had to build a building out. So I just felt like I had an accelerated learning curve on it. I was exhausted. People say, how did you do it? And I'm like, I was up at 2 a.m. and went to bed at 10 p.m. every day for many days. I was also commuting between states. So I lived in Reno and I was working in Colorado. So I'd fly every single day
Wow.
or every single week. Yeah, it was kind of a surreal.
So this practice was in
wild.
Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about the site relocation for a second.
Sure.
Obviously I have a passion for that. So
Yes.
it closed down, I guess. So the landlord decided he was going to demolish the building, or what did you say was happening?
Yeah, so we knew when we bought the practice, it was kind of what we call a sleeping practice. Older doctor, slowed down, lots of dentistry to do. It was in this old rickety house. I remember day one walking into that. I looked at my friend who we were in business and I'm like, you bought this? Like, this is what we, like, what is this? This is not your style. This is not my style. But opportunity was substantial. It was in a great area. She'd done a great amount of research before I got into it. She was a student who was scrappy as well. She got denied for loans. People always say, you know, like new grads can't afford this. You know, we had $2.5 million worth of debt on us.
Wow.
She went to 10 different lenders before she got approved, wrote an entire proposal for it. So I tell people, like, if you want something, there is someone willing. It just depends on how much you actually want it and what sweat equity are you willing to put into it. So I walked into this practice. We set paper charts. It was like disgusting. Like there was like velvet leather, like a velvet little red chair that patients would sit on to check out. And I'm like, that thing has got to have so much spit, saliva, blood. Like, what is this collecting? And so what we did is she actually found there was a space that had great street visibility about 2 miles down the road from where we were. We wanted close proximity. We wanted it to be so it wouldn't be as hard to move our patient base. And I give a lot of credit to this girl. She's a really smart business owner. I was super grateful. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to work with her, is also to just learn from her, to be an asset, to help out in the areas I could. So it was actually an old dance studio. So we had to demo the whole thing, had an amazing architect who made 5 ops in this small area. So we had a 5-op practice. We had amazing street visibility on a very, very busy street. We paid, oh my gosh, thousands of dollars for this neon sign. We almost broke up with our sign person. Like there was so much stress that took place. I was like, so many balls could have just fallen out of the air. And for some reason we were able to keep them all up and not lose it. But yeah, so that's how we were able to then I just put a huge sign because our building was literally going to be demoed. There was no way for us to stay. So we bought the practice in July and we had to be completely out by October 31st. So I had to have all of the build, all the construction done. My target date was October 1st. So we actually moved in October 1st. I don't know how, by the grace of everything, like our permits, everything fell into place. And we were able to move the whole patient base down there. We had about, I want to say I had 3 months. I think it was through the end of the year before they actually demoed the building. So I was able to keep like a sign up there, but that was it.
All right. So you guys pretty much started looking. You acquired it, you said July, end of July?
Yep.
And you had to be out in the end of October. So day one, when you acquired the practice, you're looking for a new spot. I mean, that's going to be heavy on your mind. So
it was a non-negotiable. We had to move it. We knew it was being demoed. There was nothing else to do. So that was part of the deal when we bought it.
Yeah, that would be hard because you're simultaneously trying to take over and relocate. I mean, usually those things are not done at the same time.
No.
So why this location? Your partner, where was she from? Like, was it local to her? Did she scour the United States? I mean, how did you end up here?
Nope. It was local to her. She knew she wanted to be in the Highlands area. So we were in Low-High. So it's in Denver. She knew she wanted to be there. And that's where I also tell people, like, if you really want to be in a place, you can make it happen. So we were in downtown Denver. There was a dentist on every corner from us. You would think, hey, brand new grad, probably not the best location to build in. But that street visibility, I tell everybody, I'm like, honestly, that sign that we spent 10 to 15 grand, I can't remember, I know the guy's name, Perry, we almost broke up many times. Bless you, Perry, for having it happen. but that sign, we would attract over 100 new patients a month just without any marketing at all.
And this is at the new location?
At the new location, yep.
Okay.
So
essentially you knew, like, you're not to divert too many resources towards that current location. You immediately started making awareness. Like, how long was it before you identified where you wanted to go?
It was immediate. So
okay.
Once we bought the practice, then and I credit a lot of this to the partner that I was with. Her mom actually was the one who found it. She was driving and saw it was just a place that said space for lease. And we're like, that space has great visibility. It's 1.5 miles or 2 miles down the road from where we currently are. And again, I think that sometimes life just plays really well for you when you're actively looking and you're going to make it happen. So we didn't know where we were going to move when we bought the practice. We had no clue where we were moving. But I attribute a lot of that to my partner. She did a lot of groundwork before I even showed up, that made it a much easier transition for sure.
Yeah. And it's important too. You guys, you like made the right choice in terms of site selection, because I'm sure it was probably more expensive, right? Like the place that she saw, you guys had to pay more money in rent because it was on a more prominent area. But I think Emmett Scott posts about it on the group, and like we advocate for it too, but it's like, hey, your rent is your marketing dollars, like
totally.
The more you spend in rent for the better location, the less you have to spend in marketing. And usually it's by a multiple, and so the scary part is that it's a fixed cost. Like when your rent increases from $5,000 to $10,000, or even if it goes from like $3,000 to $10,000, it looks scary because it's a multiple of what you're paying, but it's only a percentage of your overall expenses. And you're going to get back a multiple of that return on terms of patient flow and revenue every month. So, yeah, that's great that you guys did that, because I mean, so oftentimes it's like, oh, well, I don't want to have to be forced to spend extra amount of money on my rent. I want to make my rent as cheap as possible. And everybody thinks that they're special and their business is super unique, and they don't have any competition. And I was guilty of that too. I did the exact same thing when I owned some fitness centers. But it's like, man, you have to go with the basics, and you have to like, you have to market, you have to have a good location, you have to have good visibility. All these things are going to play into it. So like were you guys, before you moved, were you in a like residential area? You said it was a house. I mean, did it have bad visibility, or was it on the same street? It was just more prominent area.
So it was on the same street actually, which was really convenient. They were going to tear all that down and they actually were going to build another dental office there and some condos. So it's Denver. We knew that was going to happen. That was part of the deal when we bought it. And so I think it was just honestly, by our lucky stars that there happened to be a space just down the street again, but we knew we were going to stay in that same general vicinity, because when you move a practice, like the biggest threat we had was losing our patient base. So we were really adamant that we needed a place that was close by. But I mean, the place it was mixed in with residential. We had neighbors on either side. It was residential commercial mix. And so it was a house that had been converted to an office. Poor street visibility. We averaged, before we moved, I want to say we were averaging about 30, 35 patients a month of new patients. And when we moved it down, so it's literally right on a busy corner, we're not far off of the freeway at all. And honestly, our sign, it was really cool because there was a park in front of us. And so our sign, literally like from every direction, you could see this neon green sign lit up. And so that was our biggest threat, was how do we get this whole practice moved down? We don't lose our patients. And then we know that there's a dental office that's going to be coming in right after us. How do we ensure that? And then it was like, then how do we sell our equipment? How do we afford this? And I will say, get scrappy, because we paid a lot for that rent for sure. But at the same time, she was brilliant. She used a non-conventional architect who built out it was not a dental specific architect. He was incredible. And he was actually, I mean, we reconfigured that so many times. I remember being in part of the plans, part of building it all out.
Money, you mean?
To save money, but more than that, it was that we were able to get 5 ops in a space that I don't think many other people would have done. They were smaller ops, they weren't as big. Our sterile was wide open. It was kind of loud. We had tall ceilings, but there were so many pieces that we did that I feel were very unconventional, and I think it paid off. Like we were already expanding out the seams by the time we moved in. 5 ops was not big enough for us. So what did we do at that point? We expanded our hours. We brought in an associate. So then we were literally maximizing all of our hours. We're running this place. So it almost was acting as 10 ops versus 5 ops. We did 5 ops in the morning, 5 ops at night. That thing ran. We even opened up Saturdays, tried that. And so I just think for so many people, like us thinking outside of the box, us seeing, hey, this is right on a street corner, we're going to have great visibility, us investing in a wicked expensive sign, all those things paid undue dividends. But that was a risky move. I mean, we're straight out of school, tons of college debt on us. We're building another building, we're putting signs up, but that's where we spent our money, and everything else we didn't spend our money on. She used the worst instruments of all kinds. Like, they were terrible. She's like, my hands ache. She's like, my hands ache from using these extraction forceps. But like, could she get by with that? Yes. And we didn't buy a lot of new equipment or new hand pieces or any of that when we first started. We just said, we're going to get by as long as we can and do great dentistry, because we're spending all of our money on this marketing and new build.
Yeah. And I feel like the patients, customers in general, they just care a lot more about the experience, about how is that face-to-face interaction with the people than they do like, do you have the newest equipment? Like, do you have the best technology? It's more or less like, no, like, how did I feel? And equipment doesn't necessarily make you feel good. So I think that was a smart move. So with the sign, you said there was a big expense, kind of a big gamble that paid off well. Did you guys start to use that strategy at your other locations as you grew?
So we actually, there were 7 practices in, gosh, it was like 3 years that we added them. Wow. And so, we made our logo off of a logo contest. And then we just took that same tooth and stamped it across all the other ones. We got smarter. The first one we didn't name super well. After that, we changed it up to family and implant dentistry. And then we just label it based on the city it was in, because we realized that was our main focus. She got really into implants. And so we were able to then stamp that out. So that sign, that color scheme, it was a lime green color scheme, that paid exponential dividends because we were different. We looked different. Our tooth was a very recognizable tooth. So people could see that all up and down Colorado corridor. And that was something that we definitely started using in all of our marketing, because we saw how well it worked. We're like, whoa. And it didn't work everywhere. I mean, we bought other locations and we couldn't put signs on it, and we didn't know about that. And then we got in trouble for using the same name at another location. So there were a lot of things we learned on all of it, but I think the idea of branding it, of having a strong brand, was something that I feel we did really, really well. Again, it was a gamble, but seeing how much it paid off. I mean, we had street visibility, we had walk-ins, we had drive-bys, and I think because of that, and people always ask, I'm like, we ended up with $365 a month in a 5-op practice is how much we produced a month on average. And I think so many people don't realize what you can do in a small space. You don't have to have 10 ops. You don't have to have all these different crazy things that people think they have to have money. I think you need to have creativity, innovation, and a willingness to be a little gutsy. And then just do good dentistry and treat people really well. And I promise you, it pays off every time I work with an office like that.
That's good. And okay, so that first practice, you essentially started out when you bought it, it was doing $40K a month thereabouts, and you grew it in 9 months up to about $200K. I mean, it sounded like 5 times growth. So what did that, did a lot of that happen? What kind of things did you guys do to increase that revenue? Did a lot of that happen when you moved and having better visibility? Was there certain practices that you guys were putting in play? What do you think that was?
So we actually were doing pretty well at the first location. One thing I attribute a lot to the dentist that I worked with. She was a very talented dentist, and she used her time in school to expand her skills. So by the time she was out, she had already done, I want to say 150 CEREC crowns. So she knew how to do that. So we immediately, that was a big expense we bought. We bought that, and we also bought a centrifuge. Those are 2 of our big expenses that we bought. Again, I mean, we're already 2.5 in debt. What's another, whatever. We did pause. We didn't buy a cone beam right away. We sent people to another office for that. But I felt like what we did is she had a very expansive skill set, and I was really good at closing. And so that was a combination that I think she was wise to recruit me in. I could close pretty much any deal that came through my way, and she was a phenomenal dentist. So we put the 2 of us together. She's insanely talented at dentistry. I'm great at closing. Match made in heaven, and then we're able to just grow.
But you're not actually examining their mouth, right? She's telling you the synopsis, and then you're essentially selling them on the benefits and why they should do this procedure.
Yep. So I was office manager, treatment coordinator, and business partner. So she would diagnose, and I would present the dollars and close. And so you put those two combination together, you've got two strong, like fun. We had a great vibe. Like her
Is
and I
that a
would
pretty
make people
unique
laugh.
system for a dental office, or is that getting popular?
No, so most offices have treatment coordinators. I just
Okay.
think something she did really, really well that I give her credit for was bringing me in. And I'm not saying like, oh, Kiera's the greatest. She just knew I could sell. I could sell
Yeah.
anything. And so she knew that she could sell as well. But if she had a strong closer that could close all of her cases, that's going to drastically increase. I mean, how do you get more production? You do more dentistry, you have a good closer, and what's your case acceptance? So my case acceptance hovers usually around between 85 to 95% on average. And I started getting better and better, and I started closing like 5,000 and then 10,000 and then 20,000 and 30,000. So my average case, once we started adding implants, which we added implants and ortho within 6 months of starting our practice. So those were two quick things we added in as well. And she was very talented in it. But those two things, my average treatment plan would be between 60 and 70,000 for a full mouth within about 9 months of us opening. So we started just doing bigger, expensive. She is a risk taker. She was willing, like, gosh, we were gutsy. I remember doing a full mouth implant on this lady the day before Thanksgiving, and we didn't have implants. So I had to drive clear across town. I got a lecture from the dentist. We went and got the implants from, like, who does this? Why are you doing this? And I'm like,
Wow.
because we're scrappy girls over here that are just like trying to figure it out. I remember we like messed up this lady's vacation because we were trying a procedure and it didn't go well. But I feel like we were willing to take risks. We were willing to push the envelope, and it paid off heavily. So those are some of the things that we did. I think it was being able to close treatment, being able to present treatment, and having an expansive skill set. And then when we did move to the new location, we added in ortho, implants, and then we also were doing PRF. So she was really big on PRF and adding minimally invasive gum treatment and just things that people weren't doing. And right now she's doing TMJ and very non-conventional, different things that really truly fit patients' needs that she's very passionate about.
Interesting. Okay. So the things that you were doing to close people, the sales techniques that you use and you got better at, did you combine that, or do you use that now in like the dental A team when you consult with people?
For sure. Yeah, that's a huge piece. I actually had that with a call yesterday. I have like 7 office managers and treatment coordinators that I'm training. They record themselves, and then we walk through like, what is it? It's the power of the pause. It's the psychology. It's not worrying that it's money. It's literally like, here's your total. Let's figure out how we're going to make this work. It's intonations. It's confidence. It's all those pieces. I mean, I was terrified. I'm like, this is our business. If I don't close this deal, like, we're toast. And so, but yet not wanting to do treatment that wasn't necessary, or not wanting to force people into treatment plans, but you just learn how to connect with people. You learn how to present questions in a way that will lead to a yes versus leading to a no. And if you're willing to refine and fine tune, you will get that case acceptance.
How did you learn how to sell? Was there anybody that was really influential on you? Any books, anything like that?
Gosh, complete truth. It was trial and error. I don't like to fail. And I'm not saying that. I had a mentor. Her name is Tarly. She was one of my office managers from Arizona. And I called her, and she just told me to start tracking my treatment cases. So I started doing that, looking for patterns. Which cases was I closing? Which cases was I not closing? Was it a dollar amount? Was it a hygienist? So I started looking for patterns. I'm really big on patterns. But I think now I could say what influences me, like Tony Robbins, Rachel Hollis. There's so many people out there that just talk about the psychology of being confident in you, in delivering what people don't buy. They don't want to feel like they're being sold to. They want to buy a dream. So like, let's eat. Have you been able to bite into steak? Like, let's talk about that. That's what you want to do. So let's find a way to make that happen.
Yeah. Cause I owned several gyms for a while, and we really started doing well when we started getting more affluent, or we just started getting better at selling. Like, that was a big piece of it. Obviously marketing was a big piece of it too, but a lot of gym owners, and I think it's really true across a lot of businesses, but like, you don't want to really spend that much money in marketing, and you don't really want to sell. And like, selling has gotten like a bad word because unfortunately some people have misused it, because
Sure.
There's a lot of power behind the persuasion, and you can manipulate people for the wrong reasons. But really, it's interesting now how people will just say, oh, I'm not a salesperson, or I'm not a good salesperson.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, like, let's talk about that. How many hours have you dedicated to learning how to be a salesperson? Because does it make sense that you would be a good salesperson if you haven't dedicated the hours required to become a good salesperson? And a lot of time that's the answer, right? It's just like, well, you don't really know if you're good or if you're not good at it because you like have a propensity to not try in this certain area. And that was just like, there's a bunch of, yeah, so many, but like getting past or Never Split the Difference.
Yep. Solid book.
Yeah, that's such a great book. What The Wolf of Wall Street, he had a good one. I know he's got a really bad reputation, but I think he's really kind of reformed his ways a lot. Like he's really apologetic about how he used to do things, and now he just teaches some of his techniques. The Way of the Wolf, that's what it's called. I thought that one was good
I'll
too.
have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but just kind of changing your mindset around like, hey, I'm not good at selling, or I don't like selling, versus like doing what you need to get done to be successful, to make an impact, to provide value for you and your family. So,
and I would say to tie into dentistry on that, because you're right, so many treatment coordinators and dentists struggle because they don't want to sell. And I'm like, hang on though, what does this patient need? And they're like, well, they need this dentistry done. I'm like, okay, fantastic. So we're actually not selling. We're just finding the solution to help them get what they need. And I think that switch of your mindset of like, I'm going into this, what do you need? My job is to help you find the solution. It's not a question of if we're doing the dentistry or not. The question is, how are we going to pay for this? That's it. That's the only question we have. And if I can solve that, which is very easy to do, it takes a lot of stress off of me. It takes a lot of stress off the patient. And now I can just say like, fantastic, let's get this done. And let's just figure out the solution of how we're going to get it done. And then you start to see, I'm doing what they need. I'm helping them be healthy. And I genuinely believe that. And I think that when people can, like you said, get away from, I'm selling, I've got to close. No, we're just helping patients get what they need done, and we're making it easy for them to say yes.
Yeah, exactly. You're helping them come to a solution. A lot of times just asking questions. I mean, is that what you coach people on, is like figure out which questions to ask that are going to resonate with them?
For sure. And avoiding certain questions. I don't ask a yes or a no question ever. I'm not like, hey, Austin, do you want to get this done? You're going to say no. Like, who wants to do dentistry? Nobody. So if you realize people walk in saying no to you already, just change those questions around of, okay, fantastic. Let's reserve this time. I've got Wednesday at 4:00 or Tuesday at 2:00, which works best for you. All of a sudden it's a question of you're in control completely.
Yeah.
But I've changed those questions up to be, I don't even want to say funnel you down. It's literally just giving you a choice of, hey, this option or this option, which do you choose?
The assumed close kind of, right? Though it's just like, you come in with like, they need this done. They're having this pain point in them. So it's obvious that they have to take it. Like if they want to get over this, they're going to have to go down this path. So you're just assuming that they're taking that path already.
Yep. I say assume the yes. Every TC, every doctor, assume they want your dentistry, assume they're going to say yes to you. And it happens because it doesn't matter. I can assume they're going to say no to me, or I can assume they're going to say yes. I don't know. And I get to create that reality. So why not assume the yes and then create the solutions around that?
Don't make it harder for yourself than you have to.
No.
And if they say no, that's when the fun begins.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh no, there's so many ways around that. People, gosh. And then it just became more of a fun game for me. But I would say for offices listening or people wanting to improve, tracking your sales. I interview people all the time and ask TCs, I'm like, so what's your case acceptance? And they'll say, oh, I'm like at a 95. I'm like, have you ever tracked? Because I thought I was at a 95 too. And then I started tracking and I was sitting at a solid 70. And I thought I was a darn good closer. But then you start looking for your patterns. You start figuring, I'm like, I was scared to present implants. So I went through 9 months of implant training to learn it. So I'm insanely confident doing implants now. Like, ask me whatever question you want to ask me. Let's do this. But I think so many people don't want to put in the effort of tracking or figuring it out, and getting scrappy and learning is what's going to help you increase that and truly know, versus assuming that you're closing every case and you're actually leaving 30% on the table.
Okay. So it sounds like you guys figured some stuff out real fast when you got that first one. And then you started scaling right away. You said 7 locations in 3 years. Were you primarily doing acquisition models or de novo or what?
And we definitely did acquisition. That was way faster. We didn't do any startups. And I will say, if I could go back and give myself advice during that time, and then I did it again on the dental A team side, it's super fun and exciting and like feeds my ego like crazy to be like, yep, we've got 4 practices in this amount of time. I've got all these businesses. We were downright stupid. We didn't have our systems in place. I felt like I was wrangling cats. I felt like I was literally drinking from a fire hose. And I remember just sitting there looking at all these practices, and I felt like I was sitting on a burning ship. And I'm like, I don't really know how to fix all this. Like,
Mm.
yay to the world. I can tell you, hey, we've got all these practices. We're doing so great. We're exhausted. We're burnt out. I didn't have happy team members. Because there is a side of exponential growth that also comes if you don't have your systems in place. So, I mean, do I think it was a poor choice? We definitely had to slow down because it was fun. We're like, sweet, we did one, let's do two, let's do three. Well, your problems start multiplying as well, and they get bigger. And so you have to really look to see, okay, do I have it based well enough to grow? And I don't think you have to have everything perfect. Some people try to make it perfect, but they don't even take the next step. But I do think we would have been wise had we had a little bit better assistant. Like, we didn't have an operations manual. We didn't have, I mean, I literally had nothing in place. It was just like, we're great. Like, you're good at dentistry. I'm good at closing. We can conquer the world. But two people can only go so far, and having a true team, like, that's why I started hiring. We actually made a company, Dental Placement Pros, which does not exist anymore. That was a business I had to like let go of. But it was because I had 35 employees and I was constantly hiring, and I didn't have a good system for hiring. I felt like it was a revolving door of hiring, of employee turnover, and I'm like, that was a true sign that we didn't have our systems in place. We started having unhappy patients. We started having mess ups on our billing. And so we were being very reactive and trying to like fix it really quickly. It's kind of like a manufacturer who gets so many orders, but you don't have somebody who's building the materials for you. That's how I felt we were. We could do the dentistry, we could close, but we didn't have people that, I couldn't do all the billing. I couldn't do all the scheduling. I couldn't answer the phones. There was no system in place, which is why I made the dental A team, is because I thought, had I had what I offer now, like somebody to coach me, somebody to tell me, okay, these are the systems to get into play first. This is where to go first. I think we could have scaled faster. We could have scaled better. We could have scaled do I regret it? No. Do I think we were
Right, you're learning.
Yeah, but that was like school of hard knocks. I mean,
Yeah.
hard knocks. And so I think if people are wanting to scale, like, make sure you've got a good system in place for your first one. I didn't even have people accounting to me. It was literally, I felt like it was a frenzy. We were playing house, and I would look at her and she'd look at me and we're like, we don't even know what the heck we're doing, but we're doing it, and let's just keep moving forward. But that's also hard. Sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. I mean, I thought we were doing okay. We're clearly crushing it. We've got great overhead. We've got great, our practice is booming. Why not do a second one? But in hindsight, I'm like, we didn't have an ops manual. We didn't have systems. We didn't have a process for our billing. I didn't have a checks and balance to look at that. I didn't have a set structure for me to be able to ensure Office 1 and Office 2 and Office 3 were able to report back, instead of me like running around like a chicken to all these different practices trying to keep them all afloat. But again, I think sometimes you don't even learn that until you're in the water, and then you're like, well, let's figure it out now. So I think there's two sides to that coin, and I think either way you can be successful.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did that transition then into consulting now? Because now, I mean, you help dental companies. Is it mostly groups of dentists? Is it one-offs? Like, who's your primary target?
It's all of them. Come one, come all. It's really people that just, I have a very strong growth mindset. And so, I mean, we have solo practices, we have multiple practices. We just picked up our first corporate, which I was never going to do corporate, but they run it like a private practice. They've got, they had 11 locations and now they're at 7. I just talked to another company who has 31 locations. And honestly, I realized it depends on the ownership. And if they're running it like private practice, they're invested in their team members, they're invested in people's lives, sweet, let's work with you. And I don't think it has to be corporate or private practice. Private practice tends to attract that more than corporate does, but I don't think all corporate owners are the traditional corporate. So basically what I did was, when I was working with her, I remember, like, we had all of our students back at Midwestern that I had worked with, and I also was getting really tired and burnt out. My husband was done with residency, and I was thinking, like, this whole commute, this is getting crazy. Also, I should have been smarter in my partnership with her. We didn't, like, again, school of hard knocks. I didn't know about, if I wanted to ever leave, what does that look like to get paid for the work I had done? Like, literally none of these questions had even come up, because, hey, we were friends. Let's high five and let's make this thing happen. So I wish I would have been smarter. And I think for her, I think it could have protected our friendship and our relationship, because there were some things that went south, and they went sour. And I don't say that as a bash on either of us. I say that for other people going into partnerships, like, make sure you plan the divorce before you get married. Like, what does it look like if you guys split? Because then both parties are safe. Both parties can make intelligent decisions. So I just knew I was at a spot of burnout. My health was starting to struggle. I was losing my family. Mentally, I was stressed. That was a lot of stress. My marriage was not in a good place at all. Her marriage was not in a good place. Like it was messy. It was yucky. I put this business as my identity at the forefront. So we both agreed, and I decided to sell out my portion of the business. And again, learned a lot of great lessons on that, because I didn't even know what that looked like. It was just like, I'm done. How do I get out of this? How do you get out of this?
So you were motivated to sell
about this.
There's always the easiest person to get the best price from.
Yep, exactly. So then I realized, well, hang on, if I could help her do this, I wonder if I can help other people do this. So I literally called up my friend, said, hey, I'm going to come practice on your office. Like, I literally paid for myself to go consult him.
Oh.
And in 1 month, I was able to take him from 75,000 to 120,000.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, sweet. I think we figured out like how to miracle grow these practices. And I've done it consistently with 2 different types of doctors. This other doctors, not as driven, not as strong of a personality, not as great of a skill set. But yet if we could add a $50,000 boost in 1 month that he was able to maintain consistently, I think we're onto something. And it was just coming from systems. So then I ended up meeting Mark Costas in Dental Success Institute. He and I worked together for quite a few years. I started going on the road, hitting up hundreds of offices. I used to travel about 265 days a year.
Wow.
So hundreds of offices, just basically taking what I was learning, things I was able to bring, and starting to watch all these patterns evolve. And so now that's why we have the dental A team. And then started thinking, hang on, team members aren't rising. So if we are going to go in and grow all these doctors, team members have to rise up too. Otherwise, you're only as strong as your weakest player. So then we created the Dental A Team podcast. And basically our goal is to expand what people believe is possible in themselves and their businesses, and to get results doing it. So it's very fun. It's very easy. And we've been coined many times as the Dr. Seuss of systems. And so really just taking and customizing. I don't go in and say, okay, Austin, your practice, like here you are, here's step ABC. It's like, hey, where are you today? Let's build what your practice needs, and let's build what your team needs, and let's create systems for you in a very customized result.
Yeah, because everybody's at a different spot for different skill sets or different levels. Like, nobody has everything figured out, but also nobody sucks at everything, and those things are going to vary from person to person. So I think that makes 100% sense. So, okay. And so like you say, on average, they're increasing by 25% monthly and keeping that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's fun. And it's all doctor dependent. It's all office dependent. And that's easy when, people are like, oh, 75,000 to 120. Well, I have practices that are doing, 340. And if I can get a 2% bump on that, hey, I call that a solid win, because and so I think it's
margin at that stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So what do you say is like the main problem that you're helping people solve, or does it vary based on person to person? Look, sounds like keeping both doctors and the teams together, like keeping them both in the loop. Is that part of the proposition?
For sure. I think a lot of it just comes down to communication and then simplification. As silly as that sounds, people try to overcomplicate. It's like I said, back to business, building businesses. It's sexy. It's fun. Just like it's sexy and fun to bring on new systems, but not to fine tune what you're actually doing. And so I would say probably the number one thing we get called for is front office help. How do office managers, because that's all the stuff dentists never learned. How do we do billing? How do we do case acceptance? How do we schedule? How does my office manager truly manage? And then getting the doctor and the team members on the same page. So instead of us working as 4 separate entities, all of us coming together and working together, I think we're just big on, we're not going to build this on people. We're going to build this on systems, like hashtag Kiera's first practice. Let's definitely not do that. Let's learn from that and make sure you're not in that same boat. So really giving people the confidence. I don't like doctors to be shackled. I don't like them to not be able to hold team members accountable for fear that if they get rid of this person, their collections will drop. So really teaching the skills so that way. And then my goal is for them never to work with us for a long time. Like, let's teach them how to fish. Let's teach you how to be self-sufficient, so that way you can go on and make your greatest impact as well. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. Well, okay. And then before we wrap up, finally, you almost got deported from Canada.
I forgot I told you. I did.
Yeah, we talked about this story earlier. So I think that's a funny story. And I'd love for you to share it with the listeners so we can all get a kick out of it.
So this is when I was growing rapidly, and I was like, sweet, basically dominated the United States. Like, we've got all of our offices. Let's start branching out to other countries. So I had a client in Canada. I had a client in Australia, a client in New Zealand. So I'd already gone to Australia and New Zealand, no problem, consulted in Australia, saw a kangaroo. I was like, this is great. So I was going to see an office that I'd been coaching virtually in Canada for about, it'd been a year. And I was super excited. They were a startup practice. They were doing phenomenal. And it was time for me now to go see, like, what are you guys doing? Let's work with your team. And so I was dumb. I'm confessing like what I did. So if Canada's listening, like, this is what I did. I take full responsibility for it. So my friends had told me, and
luckily we don't have too many Canadian subscribers yet, so I think you're good.
Perfect. So we're safe, like, as long as this doesn't like have an ever tree on it. But so my clients, they said, okay, Kiera, I travel back and forth between the US and Canada all the time. Just put that you're coming like for personal, and you're not going to be stopped at the border. Just go through. Well, I was clearly going for work. We had done all the research to find out, do I need to have any of these visas or anything? Like, it was supposedly going to be fine. I made two fatal mistakes. One was the office I left, I could have just driven across the border and been at their office in an hour, but we didn't check that. We thought I had to fly. So I ended up flying from Rochester down to Newark, spent the night, and then I was flying from Newark up to Toronto. Like, I literally could have just, and I wouldn't have had this problem. So that was mistake number one. Mistake number two was it was a Saturday, and I was dressed to the hilt like business person. I'm in tights, I'm in heels, I'm in like a scarf. It does not look like I'm doing personal travel. And so on my form, mistake number three was I put that I was bringing nuts because I had trail mix. Why I even thought that was an issue, I'm not sure. So I already like had a guilty conscience apparently. So I put that I had nuts, and I
just raising all kinds of red flags.
Like, seriously, what the heck was I thinking? So he like marks my paper with a pink highlighter, and I'm trying to leave, and they send me the other way. So I'm standing in the line. I'm texting my clients on WhatsApp saying like, hey, when's our meeting? I'm stuck in security for longer. I don't know what's going on. Well, then all of a sudden I started to get this like nervous feeling like, where am I at and why am I here? So then I'm like, well, I don't even know why I thought this, but I'm like, if they read my messages, like it says that I have a meeting here and I said on my paper that I'm coming for personal, this is not looking good for me. So I deleted my message in WhatsApp. So I get up to the counter. She's like, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm for personal. And she's like, what do you do in the States? And I'm like, I'm a dental consultant. She's like, who are you visiting here? And I'm like, just some friends. She's like, what's their profession? And I said, one's a dentist. She's like, have you coached these people before? And I said, yes. She's like, so you're probably not here for personal, are you? And oh gosh. And then she said, let me check your phone. Well, I had contracts in there. I had oh my gosh, like the stress that I had. Thank heavens, some lucky stars, whatever you want to call it, universe, God was looking out for me, and my messages wouldn't load. But she saw my WhatsApp and she's like, why did you delete this message? I'm new to WhatsApp, which was true. I was new to WhatsApp, but I definitely deleted it on purpose. So she looked at me and she said, you know, I could deport you right now. And my thought was like, okay, number one, are you just cranky? Like, you don't have a ring on. Like, are you just trying to be like power play on me? Like, I don't know what's happening here. Number two, what is going on? And she's like, if you even think about doing any ounce of work, you will be deported. So wow. She let me go. I was terrified. She literally did. She like let me go. I got in. I was terrified. I told my clients, like, I cannot do anything. I'll come see, because Canadian law is that you can actually go over and observe. If you've been working with a client, you just can't do work. So I couldn't hold meetings. So I went and observed. I definitely went to Niagara Falls and took pictures. So it looked like I was definitely doing tourism. I didn't do and then when I went back to the airport, my clients did not believe me, but I said, no, like, you got to take me back early. You got to take me back early. Like, I'm stressed that I'm not going to get back home.
It was a single day, just one day.
So I spent one night there. So I was there a Saturday to Sunday, flew home Sunday night. And gosh, when I went back to the airport, so dang stressful. I got searched 3 times.
Wow.
So they said that I had arsenic in my bag. I think because I work at dental offices, my husband's a pharmacist. So like they had to swab my whole bag. I got searched 2 times in security. I got taken behind doors to be searched. And then right before I got back on the plane, they searched me again. So needless to say, when my husband and I decided to do like a fun trip to go to Canada, we went to Newfoundland. That's where he served his mission. I was sweating bullets. I'm like, what if they see my record that I try to like lie to them? Like, I was so stressed out. But that was my.
You didn't even do anything wrong. That's the crazy part. Yeah. You ended up not working.
Well, I did. I lied that I was going for personal, and then I made that into a truth. So I didn't technically lie, but yeah, it was quite a
At the
and
time,
I'm
at the
like,
time it was
Canadians
a
are
lie,
so
but it turned
nice.
into a truth. That's
No,
funny.
gosh dang it. So
Man, that's
all the
crazy.
lessons,
So
don't mark that you've got trail mix, guys. Like not worth it. Like you can
yeah,
totally have that
that's
stuff.
the
Like
takeaway.
fine.
But also, couldn't you have just gone, visited them, done whatever, and like build them when you got back, and technically it would have been
Yes.
considered work?
And that was my plan. That was actually the plan. My contract said that it was $0 for the visit, and I think it was like a $4,000 phone call when I returned
But you
back
just
to the
got cold
States.
feet.
I got cold feet. I know, I chickened. I got stressed out. I'm like, this
Well,
woman's gonna send me back. I mean, and then I almost got deported out of Ireland, but that was not for work. That was just me being sassy. Like all the things. Like I gotta like rein in this redheaded temper over here. Just call it cool. It's good to be
yeah,
scrappy at certain times. Other times, like play it cool.
that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I've been to about 33, 34 countries, and the only time I ever had a bad experience was going to England. So it's like something about these first
Interesting.
world developed English speaking countries that, like, I don't know. And it was a woman who seemed to be having a bad day. So, yeah,
Telling you,
I
I
didn't,
know.
I didn't really have any takeaways from mine, unfortunately, except that she was a jerk. So at least you learned something from yours.
Well, no, because then I just did it again when I was in Ireland. And I mean, I even said my worst comment I've ever said to another soul. I said, like, why don't you and I, like, why don't you just process my transaction so neither of us ever have to speak to each other again? Because I think that's in the best interest for both. I was like, what the heck? She put me in timeout. I got put in timeout in Ireland, sat in this like holding area. It was just,
Oh,
that was
well, that's the worst thing you've ever said to someone. That's not bad at all.
like a jerk. Louisa, that was her name. I don't remember the Canadian girl, but I do remember the Ireland girl.
That's
So,
so funny.
but yeah,
Well,
there we go.
that's cool. All right. So yeah, I feel like we have a great understanding of how you got started, what it is that you do, and how you help people. And so that's been awesome. For anybody who wants to reach out, they're interested, they want to know more. I mean, what's a great way to find out more or get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Hello@thedentalateam.com is our email. You guys can also pop on over to thedentalateam.com. That's the dental A team. We're cool like the Facebook and the Home Depot. It's just because we can't own dental A team. So either way, and honestly, I would say like I love tactical, I love practical. And so I hope that people today took from this, like be scrappy. When people zig, you zag. Look for ways to make yourself as strong as you can. Don't be afraid of taking those risky moves. I love what you said, that like rent and street visibility is a lot of your marketing. And I think some of those big pivotal moments, like make them and be bold in that, and go for it. Do your research, but don't be afraid to make those first steps, because I think so many people get stuck in the tyranny of how, like Tony Robbins says, and they don't actually leap. And you learn so much once you leap. But yeah, like we made mistakes, we had crazy things. I think be a good person, make good decisions, and do the best you can in the time, and then move forward. And I hope that your listeners pulled that from today. Like, yes, it's a fun story, but like what can they take for themselves? I'm hoping that that's what they take of innovate, create, keep moving forward, and be the best person you can be through it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's great advice right there. And you can't go through without making mistakes. I mean, you just can't know everything, and so
Right.
giving mistakes is going to be a lifelong process.
For sure.
Hopefully you learn from them
Absolutely.
and you don't have to keep making them, right?
Right. Yes,
So,
exactly.
well, that's great. Well, yeah, so it was fun having you on, and I'd love to do this again, maybe next year sometime. Have you on as a repeat
Absolutely.
guest.
Yeah, we'll share another office. We won't do my story. I'll share some office autopsies that I love. Of like, this is what other dentists did. This is their craziness, or this is their brilliance. Absolutely, I truly appreciate it, and appreciate your time today, Austin. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thanks very much.